so starting at the bottom of 303. Ricky Simone versus... I don't even hear that name pronounced.
I think it's
Vinicius, maybe?
Vinicius sounds... That sounds more accurate to me.
Yeah, it's Brazilian, so I don't really know, but Oliveira. So, I watched him fight... Let's see... It was one of his opponents outside of the UFC. He had his hands down a lot, and he was kind of like jumping, like he was bouncing back and forth, and anytime he'd throw strikes, he'd throw them from his hip, and they were pretty powerful.
Is he out of shoot box, or does he just have the last name Oliveira? Most people with that, I feel like,
let's see,
Sombra team. No,
okay. Yeah, I haven't heard of this guy before. I mean, he's only had obviously one fight in the UFC, but
23.
20-3,
16
knockouts. KO TKO. That's what was crazy to me. Is it's 80% of his wins are stand up or finishes on the feet, but then his only losses are also KOs. I don't know. He's somewhat well rounded because he's got those submissions underneath his belt, and obviously he's Brazilian.
Yeah, he's gonna have some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, but the thing I also noticed, though, is this is all a bunch of different promotions outside of the UFC, North America. I think a lot of this is like South America. And then with Ricky Simone, I mean, Mario Batista, Yadong Song, fucking Jack Shore, Sun Sao, Kelleher, Ray Borg, Rob Font, Uriah Faber. He's fought a lot harder competition.
He beat Merab back in 2018.
Yeah, Merab too. Yep. Yeah.
Back before Merab was the machine that he is now, but I mean, it's still Merab.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He's been fighting in the UFC since 2018, so.
He's been around a while, and he hasn't been fighting bums. He's been fighting top competition almost the entire time.
Yeah, but he's beaten top competition, but he's also like the one that stood out to me was Uriah Faber. Yeah, he lost to a 40-year-old Uriah Faber when he was like 26. And again, age is just a number, but that's something that like going into it is I like Uriah, but I probably wouldn't have thought he'd finish him in
first round, 52nd. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. I've heard of Ricky, but I haven't caught a lot of his fights. I think I saw him fight a Sun Sao.
I watched him fight Song Yadong. I know.
You did.
And I watched him fight Mario Batista.
Okay.
I want to say, no, I don't think I watched him fight Shore. But I watched the Sun Sao fight, and he's decent. But like we were saying, he definitely struggles against the top competition. Even then, Uriah Faber definitely wasn't top competition. 40-year-old Uriah Faber.
Yeah.
At the time. So, he's shown that he can hang around. We haven't seen a lot from Oliveira. I don't know how his gas tank is really, but I could definitely see Simon just being able to outpace him if he doesn't get knocked out in the first round. If Oliveira doesn't knock Simon out in the first round, I can see Simone going to probably a decision would be my pick. If not, probably a late TKO stoppage.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it really kind of depends just how Ricky shows up that night and what he's trying to do. I could see him, making a submission, or not a submission, a decision win. 10 of his wins are by submission, half of them. Or, God, I keep saying submission. Decision. 10 of his wins are by submission, 50%. But just 16 TKOs. It's like...
That is alarming.
It's hard to see because, again, the competition he's win against, I don't know really any of these guys. And the people that he's been finished by, I don't know any of these guys.
His gas tank does seem to hold up because he's got a finish.
He's got a couple...
clean knockout finish, very end of the third round.
Yeah.
So He does have a decent gas tank, but how good is that gas tank gonna stick around someone that can, went to a decision against current Song Yudong top contender.
Yeah, he's gone 15 minutes 12 times in his professional career. He can last the whole fight. And the age difference isn't that much either. Fucking Oliveira's 28 and Ricky's 31, so that isn't something to really even pay too much attention to. Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe pick. I could see Oliveira getting round 1 or 2 finish. I think if he doesn't get it done by then, it'll probably either go to him by decision or Ricky, depending on how it all plays out, Okay.
Before we get to the next one,
Mm-hmm.
might as well do some introductions. So, I'm Ness, and
I'm Hunter.
And we're just kind of casual MMA fans. We train a little bit. We watch the UFC. We're just kind of talking about 303, trying to get a little bit of a footing in just talking about it. So, analyzing, very light, just giving our predictions for this upcoming card tomorrow or tonight, depending on when this uploads.
Yeah, I spent last night and this morning, as of recording this, just researching, watching some videos, looking at some stats, and looking over some people. I've been watching the UFC for about, I think it's like 10 years now. On and off, how much I've paid attention to it, so.
And I've been casually probably the last 4 years and very intensely the last 2 years. I don't think if I've missed a card, that's a very rare occasion, or it's just because I'm working and I can't catch them all. But I usually try and catch most of the fights.
No. All right, so it's hard to say this guy's name. Ray Tsuruya?
Tsuruya, I believe.
Yeah. And then Carlos Hernandez. So I hadn't heard of Ray until researching for this, but I saw he just won 3 straight fights in a row on the Road to UFC Season 2. That got him a contract. He seems pretty good and pretty well-rounded. He's got 4 TKO/KOs, 4 submissions, and a decision win with 0 losses. He's pretty explosive. Beyond that, that's really all I know, but I like seeing fighters from Japan doing well, especially in the UFC, just because you don't see it as much anymore. And I really liked watching old Pride videos with my dad, or old Pride fights, so.
The only thing I knew about Tsuruya is that he was out of Road to UFC, and again, I like watching those Japanese fighters. I'm kind of a sucker for the Japanese culture, so I like watching those kinds of people come up, and there's some warriors out there, man. I'm surprised that they haven't had a champion for their country yet in the UFC, but I think he is a pretty decent up and comer, and last week we saw another pretty good up and comer from Road to UFC as well. I watched a fight of his as well. He's very, very explosive. Like Hunter mentioned, 4 TKOs/KOs, 4 submissions. So I could see him taking it either way. He can take it to the ground. He can hang on the feet. Whatever he wants to do, I think he can take it. The only problem I can see him having is his explosiveness. It's very easy to get caught, especially with having that explosiveness at the high level with not to discredit him, but he hasn't been fighting the top contention in the UFC, and trying to start a career with that explosiveness is very, very difficult. It's not, it's a style that you have to practice and put into practice well, and it's hard to do that against top contenders. So we'll see how that does against Carlos Hernandez. He's definitely not a top contender, but, he did fight Tatsuro Taira, who was the previous contender that I mentioned from Japan that fought last week, and I believe that he is very good, and he lost to Taira. Taira's a much more measured and composed opponent than Tsuruya, so
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. I can see Carlos having some good scrambles with the wrestling, and he has some submissions up his sleeve, but Tsuruya is a pretty strong fighter.
Yeah, he's got a train right now that's just chugging along, and I don't think Carlos is gonna quite have enough to stop it. I mean, the submissions or something, but I looked at him. He has 0 KO TKO finishes in his professional career. He's only fought 12 times.
He's definitely a decision fighter, it
Yeah.
seems like, and I can see Tsuruya finishing him before a decision just with his explosiveness. If you're looking at this first round TKO, he's got a lot of early finishes in his arsenal and a lot of it's either first round or mid second round. So he doesn't see a third round hardly ever.
Yeah, he's gone to decision twice in his entire career. He went to decision in his first amateur fight, and then his second to last fight in the road to UFC, he went to unanimous decision. So he's fought 15 minutes before. He can hang. I guess amateur wouldn't be that length, but he's done it at least once.
And as much as we talk about Hernandez having submissions up his arsenal, Tsuruya just has just as many. If you look at his, he's got some arm bars. I think he has a necktie choke on there. He's got a rear naked scarf hold arm lock is what it was. 2 rear naked chokes, a front choke.
Yeah, scarf hold arm lock and fucking the UFC. I mean, technically, road to UFC, but still, I mean, people funneling into the organization. It's definitely impressive. Yeah, I'd say, yeah, probably around 1 or 2 TKO or submission by Ray. If Carlos is gonna pull it out, I see it probably being a third round decision.
If it's a
don't
decision,
think he's gonna submit him.
If it's a submission or a decision, I think it might be a split decision, because Tsuruya has, even when he went to a decision, it was still a unanimous.
Mm-hmm.
He's proven that he's a very, very competent fighter all around.
Yeah.
But again, the only thing I could see him getting into trouble with is his explosiveness. I can see Carlos running in and getting a takedown and maybe locking something up. But if that does happen, Tsuruya's been there before, and I think he could lock something up just as easily.
Yeah, for sure. Alright. And then the next fight, got Andrei Arlovsky versus Martin Buday. The fucking pit bull. He's fucking ridiculous, dude. He's a legendary veteran. He's been around since 1999. So as of now, it's 25 years of professional MMA. He's 45 at 34 and 23, and his chin is pretty much just glass and sand powder. He's gotten flatlined by a lot of people. I think Overeem, pretty much every power puncher in the heavyweight division in the last 20 years, he has either knocked out or been knocked out by. Currently, he's on a 3-fight losing skid. So like that, with his age and how many times he's been put on his back, isn't a great statistic. But from what I've seen of Martin, he's a whole lot less experienced, and while he's older at 32, he doesn't seem that much more athletic or nimble. So I don't think he's gonna go out there and out cardio Andre or like blitz him with a bunch of fast combos or strikes. I think the only edge you could really give to Martin would be that he's 32. He's got a couple submission victories under his belt, and Andre has been you can put him down pretty easy if you land a couple shots.
I mean, he got TKO'd by Gaziv.
Yeah.
So, Gaziv definitely isn't top contention type fighter. You watched his fight against Rosenstrike, and it is definitely not a top performance. So that says something about his striking. if he's getting outstruck by, because Gaziv is primarily a striker. He's not much of a grappler,
Yeah,
but
even
he
though
is
he's a
very
baddie.
sloppy striking. It's not
Yeah.
good striking. And Arlovsky's been around for a while, so he's definitely older, and he's, his chin's not what it used to be, but his striking is so much cleaner than Gaziv's was.
Definitely.
So
yeah.
if you just MMA math doesn't stand up, I'm aware of that, but I mean, on paper, if you look at it, if Gaziv can do it, there's no way Arlovsky can't.
Yeah, I definitely think. I think Martin has a chance, but because Arlovsky, from what I remember, he was never a super skilled fighter, like on his feet. But he was a lot cleaner than a lot of these other heavyweights.
He had a lot of decisions recently, so he at the very least
He's
hung around.
Yeah, he's a lot cleaner than like a Derek Lewis or like Ngannou when he started. He's a lot cleaner and more technical than that. But I don't know, man. Just the competition. I mean, wins and losses against Tom Aspinall, Rosenstrike, Augusto Saki, fucking Ty, Tui, Stefan Struve, Marcin Taboria, Francis Ngannou, Josh Barnett, Alistair Overeem, Stipe, Frank Mir, Travis Brown, Antonio Silva, Brendan Schaub, fucking
Anthony Johnson.
Yeah, Anthony Johnson, Fedor Emelianenko in Affliction, like Roy Nelson, Ben Rothwell, Verdum, Tim Sylvia fucking 3 times. Pedro Rizzo he even fought in 2002. Like, he's been around for such a long time that I have to just go with my gut and with my heart. Like, I hope he either gets I'm trying to see what my
I think what's gonna happen is he's either gonna get a late stoppage or just hang around with him long enough to get a decision. I don't think that fight's gonna see a finish. I don't think Boudet has the striking capability to put Arlovsky away despite his chin, and I think that Arlovsky will be able to match that striking pretty well, but I don't know how well he's going to be able to exceed it with his age and probable CTE.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're both sloppy enough to where I could see it.
It could just be a brawl.
I could see them just like throwing flurries that don't really go anywhere, getting on the ground, getting up, and by the time they get to rounds 2 and 3, they're just gonna be fucking wiped. And it's either gonna be Andre just finds a shot, because from what I've seen, he's got a lot better physique and cardio than Martin does, even in his age. So I don't know. The losing streak isn't great, but Martin's also coming off of a loss, so yeah, I'd say Andre by split decision or round 3 TKO is what I'd like to see. Then Michelle Watterson Gomez versus Jillian Robertson.
Featured early prelim. I actually know a little bit more about this one.
Yeah.
So when we went to UFC Kansas City last year, we got to see Robertson fight, and that was fun to watch. And I've been following her ever since. Follow her on Instagram. She trains hard. She trains at one of the craziest places. They grind there with what's his name? Dean Martin. That's where he is, I believe. Let me double check everything right here.
You're talking about Robertson, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember where she trains at.
Yeah, they've both been around for quite a long time. Let's see.
Dean Thomas, that's his name. I got it wrong. It's Dean Thomas. I'm trying to remember the gym that it's out of.
Let's see, it should say the Goat Shed.
Goat
Academy.
Shed. Yeah, that's right. They're not quite as bad as Extreme Couture, but they grind there. They're very, very grappling heavy, and not the friendly kind of grappling like the grind on you, put your arm against your chin, grind your forehead against their head. Dirty wrestling. It's wicked ground and pound, and she is trying to get the most submissions in UFC history, and she is close. I'm gonna check my stats real quick.
For women's MMA or overall?
Both.
Really, 9 submissions?
Yes. Let me double check everything.
See, I think Gerald Mearshard or
Oliveira holds the record right now.
yeah, Oliveira. I don't know the exact number though. I know they have a bunch. It's how many in the UFC.
Yes.
But yeah, Michelle Watterson, she's also a veteran. She's been around for a long ass time, but she's been on a pretty brutal losing streak. She's found herself at the end of a TKO, a submission, and 2 decision losses in her last fight. While she's gone in there before and won against names like Angela Hill pretty recently, the last couple years, but Felice Herring and Paige Van Zant, I think her star has shined out. I mean, she's 38 years old.
She's definitely up there,
And
yeah.
this is her 31st professional MMA fight. So, it isn't really likely for her to get back on a solid roll again. And Jillian's a lot younger at 29.
A lot of people discredit her because of her record, and it is on paper not that great of a record. 13-8. She's got almost as many losses as she does wins, but she's on a. If you look at most of those losses, they're against pretty high contenders. Myra Buena Silva, who's fighting later tonight, Macy Barber, or not later tonight, later on the card. Macy Barber, who is most likely next in line for title contention.
I was looking at the wrong thing. Whoops. Yeah, the karate hotties who we want as well. Yeah. 18-12 versus 13-8. Like, the 18 sounds like a lot, but I mean,
honestly, if you look at both of them, they've both been fighting top contention.
Yeah, no, they definitely have.
I was talking about Jillian.
But yeah, no. Angela Hill, Esparza, Joanna, Felice Herring, Rose, Van Zant. I think I've heard of Jessica Penne, but I don't really know as much about women's MMA as I really should as a fan. But it's just, for me, it's the age. The age is just crazy. As light as they are, I don't know. Her last win was in 2020, and then she lost 2 more before that. But I don't know. She had a little three fight win streak from 2018 to 2019. It's not like even then that's 5-6 years ago now. That's early 30s. She's getting to be 40. Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, they have the same amount of submission wins. Michelle's extra wins over Jillian are all decisions, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 4 decisions and 1 TKO win over Jillian.
Oh, yes. Jillian has the most submission victories in
women's MMA?
Women's UFC.
And then what's the most submission overall right now?
I can't find it, but I believe attempts is Jim Miller. I know that.
Yeah, I know the attempts.
But I couldn't find an actual steady. It's
Really?
not on the website. I couldn't find one of all the actual
I
submissions for some reason.
feel like I see 11 in my brain, but I really don't know for certain. But yeah, but both of them they've also been on the losing end of 6 decisions, so it is likely that they could just either one could win by decision at the end. I would still give the edge to Jillian Robertson though, just with age, her submissions. I think she probably has what it takes to.
It's Oliveira with 16 submissions.
16, yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. See, I knew it was more than 9. That's why I was like, I don't know, but
Finally found it.
9 is still. I mean, that's still pretty good, especially in the UFC. You know,
Yeah.
It's not just.
No, this is definitely a good fight. I see it hitting the ground. I think Jillian is gonna strike for a while. Watterson has submissions. She's got grappling. I see her getting knocked down by Jillian. Jillian following up with some ground and pound because that's what she does. That's what they do over there at where they train. So I see her doing that, following up with some nice ground and pound, and from there it's kind of a toss-up. I mean, you look at her; she's definitely on a roll right now. She's got a spotty record, but most of that's earlier in her career. She's got 1 loss in the last 6 fights. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that's
a
against
lot better.
Tabitha Ritchie. Tabitha Ritchie is pretty good. She's also up and coming. And then if you look at her other losses, I mean, J.J. Aldrich, she's decent. Miranda Maverick, who's also decent. Most women MMA they have spotty records, but I mean, Talia Santos is pretty top contention. Macy Barber is in line for a title.
There's not a whole lot of fluff there anymore. You know, they're all kind of fighting each other.
They're fighting each other,
to
so
get
it's
that
all
belt.
very close fights.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Jillian fought a lot of those people early in her career, and you know she's got a pretty recent grappling victory against Rose Namajunas, who I count that as her part of her victory. And I mean, if you look at her grappling, that helps look at a lot of her record. Is that helps add some depth to her record, because I mean, that's only one of her tools, and that's probably her best tool. But if you look at how well she succeeds with it, I think she has a pretty decent chance at beating Watterson, especially with, you know, she just beat Polyana Viana, who everyone was kind of hyping up. You look at her record, she hasn't really fought anybody, so, you know, she's kind of trained with Alex Pereira. She might have been a little overhyped. But, you know, just beat her. And you look at Watterson Gomez, and she's got a similar fight history of fighting top contention. But, I mean, a loss to Rose, that was MMA, not grappling, though, so that's a little bit different. Lost to JJ, lost to Esparza, lost to Amanda Lemos. And then, even then, Marina Rodriguez, she's good. And some of her other losses really aren't all that great. Like, some of these people aren't all that great. And Jillian's lost against almost exclusively top contention. And she is young. She's up and coming. She's on a pretty good roll right now. She's training hard. She wants this. She fucking wants it, man. I can see her winning any way she wants. It's probably going to be a submission. I see her beating Michelle at her own game just because they both have a good number of submission wins. I see her pulling an armbar or rear naked choke very easily, probably in the second round after beating her up in the first for a while, getting bored.
That's a pretty solid pick, especially since you've been keeping up with what she's been doing and watching her fights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that is the early prelims. We got fucking like 50 minutes out of that. I think that's pretty crazy.
Solid.
Yeah. Next one, Peyton Talbot versus, I'm gonna try my best here, Giannis Gamori.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I think so.
Gamori, yeah.
So Peyton's a pretty new up-and-comer in the UFC with 2 finishes in the promotion so far. 25, 8-0, very promising on paper. He showed his abilities against another upcomer, Cameron Simon. I actually saw his Dana White Contender Series fight when he got his contract. But he established his dominance with his striking and pressured Cameron, kept him on his back foot constantly, and, you know, he got the finish. He's very precise and intelligent with his combos. I saw that he had a little holes with the wrestling in particular, but again, he's 25. He's got some time to kind of fill those gaps, especially when his striking is as good as he is and the role he's on. What do you know about Peyton?
A lot of people call him the next O'Malley. I can definitely see a lot of parallels. They're very patient, composed strikers, a lot of KO finishes. 6 out of his 8 professional by KO. Like I said, very patient with his striking. He does draw a lot of parallels to an early Sean O'Malley, where he's very, very good on the feet, a little bit cocky, might struggle with the grappling, but I think now that he's starting to break out into the UFC with interesting up-and-comer, I think he'll be able to crank it up a little bit. I think he's been taking his training really seriously. I think he's a really funny guy. You know, he he talks about the black heart tattoo, like the black hole on his chest. He talks about how that comes like from the darkness within him. That it's like some crazy bullshit. Like he's a weird dude. He's really funny. I like him a lot.
I have not heard about that.
He said it in some press conference, and I was going through Instagram and I saw it earlier this week. It was really funny. I was like, all right, interesting guy, and pulled up his Contender Series fight, and he's legit.
Even with from what I only saw him fight Simon. I think that was the only fight I caught. But he did submit Nick Aguirre, whatever, however you say his name. To be fair, I'm pretty sure the dude had 2 losses in the UFC and then got cut. I think that was his UFC run, unfortunately. But say what you want, I don't think Sean has a submission win professionally. At the very least, I know he does not have it in the UFC. So, you know, at the very least, you know, he's been working on that. I know Sean works it too, but he's, at the very least, Peyton has shown at a professional level in the UFC that he has a submission game. So, yeah. Giannis Gamori.
All I know about this guy is he got kicked in the dick for his debut.
Yep, I saw it. Yeah, I looked that up and I was like, oh man, he lost his debut.
It was a TKO body kick, but he argued he got kicked in the dick.
Yeah, wasn't the ref telling him like, you need to get up?
Yeah,
he didn't get kicked in the nuts.
Yeah, it was really weird.
Yeah, So, I think I watched a little highlight reel of, I think, his fights in Brave, mostly. I watched him fight Bahir Sitepin. I totally butchered that, but his third to last fight in Brave, he let's see. He's a little bit more experienced than Peyton. He's 12-2 instead of 8-0. 40% of his wins come by decision. He isn't a huge finisher. He does have 3 KOs and 4 submissions, so it's obviously something he's capable of. But from what I've seen, it seems like he kind of likes to stay right on the outside, feel his opponent out, feint him, outpoint him, try to get the decision win. I could definitely see that being his game plan against Peyton, and I can see him taking advantage of Peyton wanting to chase that finish and get a KO. And I don't think the dude's gonna quite catch him, but I could definitely see Giannis, possibly taking it to decision. But I think it's way more likely that we see Peyton get a TKO finish late in round 1 or sometime in round 2.
That sounds pretty likely. A lot of people with those O's get overzealous and try and chase that finish to try and keep their O's and solidify it without having it go into the judge's hands. So,
especially when they're finishers, 6 finishes like that, 7 finishes.
Exactly. So, against someone like Giannis, who, he's a French MMA. So, say what you want about French MMA, whether it's good or whatever you want to say. He's a decent fighter, I'd say. He's got a few submissions, so he's a grappler, and like we said, Talbot definitely has a hole in that grappling game. But like I said, with him up and coming in the UFC, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't take this a little bit more seriously and start training that grappling and training those holes. Because if he really wants it, and he'll make sure he gets it, and he'll train it well. speaking on Giannis, he's got one more submission than he does any other, or I guess more than KOs. But he is a semi-decision fighter. I'd say with Giannis.
I mean, he technically has more finishes than he does.
Yeah.
But just from the pace that I saw him putting on,
It's a
his
slow
last
pace.
couple fights, it's definitely pretty slow.
It's a very slow pace, yeah. And I mean, even that fight against Gomez where he got, TKO'd, he was not winning that fight. You look at the stats. He got outstruck 61-99 on Gomez versus 40-88.
Yeah.
52 out of 88 significant strikes and 28 out of 73. He missed 4 takedowns and Gomez pulled 2 sub attempts. So he was not winning that fight anyways. And Gomez, he's definitely good. He had a weird thing last month, I believe, where he was supposed to fight. He was the one who had the weird weight cut, and he almost passed out on the scale.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I think I heard something.
That was
about
him.
That.
So
6. 6 foot at fucking featherweight.
yeah, he was the 6 foot featherweight.
Is what
yeah,
you were talking about?
Yep, he's pretty
Yeah.
good. He's another French
Guys from
MMA.
France, yeah.
So
They're definitely, they got some dogs over there. I think their biggest problem is that I think it's a lot of kickboxing over there.
That's what I've seen.
Because
it's a lot of TKO.
MMA has only been legal over there for like 2 years or something like that. It was super recently that blew my mind. But yeah, I mean, obviously those guys could go train and fight. At the very least, they had to fight somewhere else. But it's kind of hard if you want that to be your career. It's like, all right, I gotta leave home.
Gotta go somewhere.
Some
for
other
a while.
country.
Yep.
Nice thing is he's fucking in Europe, so he has to drive like 20 minutes.
Yeah, he just has to go to wherever country.
He'll be fine. But
I mean, you're looking at Gomez. He hasn't been in the UFC. I mean, he hasn't been in the UFC for very long, longer than Talbot has. But all of his UFC wins are either decision or weird half, maybe dick, maybe body TKO kicks that are kind of up in the air still. So, we'll see how this one goes. But like I said, I definitely see Talbot winning.
Yeah, Giannis, you mean, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Because I was comparing Talbot to Gomez because they've both been in the UFC or they haven't been in the UFC for very long, but Gomez has been longer, and his only non-decision victory was that weird victory against Giannis.
Yeah. Okay, so Charles Jourdain versus John Silva.
I know Jourdain's a Canadian.
Yeah.
Because of Julian Robertson, they kind of link up sometimes and train together. I believe he beat Kron Gracie, from what I remember. He's got some pretty solid power in his hands. He's got... Let me pull up his record really quick.
That's right. You're 15-7, 8 KO, TKOs, 5 submissions, 2 decisions, and his 6 of his 7 losses are by decision.
Okay, so it's pretty safe to say if this fight goes to a decision, it's not going Jourdain's way. He's not a decision fighter. He doesn't seem to have the gas tank to do that. So I know very little about these two other than the fact that Jourdain's Canadian and has a few fights in the UFC. I do know that he beat Kron Gracie, but I don't know. He's got quite a few fights in the UFC. He's been around a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah, I know. He was a couple of the other dudes that I was looking at. It's like, oh, he fought fucking Jourdain too.
Yeah, he's been on since 2019. Got a victory against Du Hu Choi. Lost against Andre Fili. Draw against Joshua Quilabo, who I know. Lost against Julian Arosa. Lost to Shane Burgos. Lost to Nathaniel Wood. Lost to Sean Woodson. So, I mean, if you're looking at him on paper, He's pretty solid at beating those lower contenders. Those higher contention and even a couple of those up and comers, he hasn't been able to do very well against. So, looking at that, we'll see how it goes. I know very little about John Silva.
I don't know that much either. His last fight was his first fight in the UFC. He's on a, what is it, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fight win streak, as to where, Jourdain lost his last fight, won the previous 2, and then lost the 2 after that. So he has a very win-win, loss-loss, win-loss, win-loss kind of record as of now. But let's see, what was it? Let's see. He usually seems to go out there and get a finish, whether it's a TKO or a submission, or he just gets taken a distance and loses. John Silva, while having less overall fights at 12-2, he has one more TKO KO finish than Charles with 9. His stand-up is pretty brutal, and he likes to use, he has these fucking vicious knees, and he'll sit there and hit you with elbows. He'll get you up against the cage. And as he hits you and you start to sink down, he'll frame on your shoulders and your head and push you back up so he can accurately hit you again.
I like that.
Yeah, no, he seems like a beast. I think it's somewhat of a fair fight on the feet. Both men have solid striking and they both have power to go with it. I would probably give Charles Jourdain the slight nod, just because of his submission wins, and he has a pretty competent ground game. But John Silva is a fucking beast, and I think he could probably you could pull out a finish on the feet at any time. Win or lose, I'm definitely going to be paying attention to him in the future. He's only got one fight, but he's promising to me.
I could definitely see. I think John Silva, just from what you've said, is a pretty safe bet.
He's a safe bet for sure.
I like what you said with his knees and framing off. I think that can pose a real problem for Jourdain. He gets outstruck pretty frequently.
He could get caught going for one of those submissions too.
Exactly. Yep. I think what I see is gonna happen is Jourdain's gonna entertain the feet a little bit, not like it very much. Gonna try and go for a takedown, some sort of submission, get caught with one of those knees, probably get finished sometime in the second round, because I don't know if Silva's got the eyes of grizzled veteran type of fighter. So we'll see how long it takes for him to get that read, but I think he's gonna pick up on it. He's 12-2, pretty solid striker. If he's got any IQ at all, I think he's going to pick up on that pretty quickly, assuming that Jourdain is going to want to go for one of those submissions that he can go for. He probably could hang out on the feet. He's never been knocked out before. I definitely see him getting chinned and not liking it very much. And then from there, going from a takedown.
Yeah, Silva's only losses, he's got 2 decision losses too. So, there is a chance that it goes to decision, and
if it goes to a decision, it's either way because they're both very poor with decisions. Seemingly.
Yeah.
Is that just because they gas out, or
let's see. Round 1, round 3 he won.
Okay, Silva's a very round 1 fighter.
Yeah, 1.
Recently.
Round 3 loss. So yeah. Yeah, for the most part, it seems like he does his absolute best round 1. I need to watch this Contender Series fight though and see how he did go in the distance. But if I had to put money on it,
if he gets
I probably would say Silva with a finish.
If he gets that read round 1, I think that's that sounds.
Yeah, I don't know,
man. That's a
man.
good pick.
Jourdain can still finish people though, and the submissions are there. So it's. I don't think John Silva is gonna have a cakewalk, but I could definitely see him catching Jourdain with something and just putting him down.
For sure.
Yeah, it'd be his first TKO loss too. So that'd be
That'd be
Yeah.
pretty significant for him. I mean, he's coming off a loss. Jourdain is. He's coming off a loss to Sean Woodson,
Mm-hmm.
who's I mean, not an up and comer, I'd say, but I said an up and comer just because he's hasn't been in the contention and he's now starting to maybe break into it. 12-1. He's pretty decent, and I mean that was his decision. That was a split decision.
Yep.
So, if you're assuming Sean Woodson's an up and comer like I am, I think he's a pretty interesting and maybe promising prospect. Even if you're looking at that, it was a decision. So I mean, I see Silva with a very strong first round and a decent enough second round to probably steal another split decision from Jourdain if he doesn't finish it. I don't think Jourdain's going to win this fight.
Yeah. That's pretty solid. All right. Next one, we got Cub Swanson and Andre Feely. I'm gonna let you kick this off while I get a drink.
I like this fight. So, I am more familiar with Feely than I am with Swanson. I am pretty decently familiar with both of them. I've watched Feely's last few fights. You know, he's very good, solid on the feet. He keeps his hands low, which is definitely kind of a problem. He gets a little bit cocky. He has very good scrambles. What he likes to do when people come in is they'll come in with a couple strikes and he'll take them and turn them over and slip them over his shoulder. He'll do a judo throw, land on top. Sometimes he'll land on bottom, but he doesn't even mind being on the bottom sometimes. He's got an excellent head kick. His back leg roundhouse is money. He'll hit leg kicks with it. He'll hit body kicks with it. He'll hit head kicks with it. And I think one of the keys he's gonna have to beating Cub Swanson tomorrow, dear Lord, is gonna be having that good back leg kick for leg kicks. Because something I noticed about Swanson when I was watching some of his fights is he's very, very heavy on his lead leg. Because he likes to defend those takedowns because he's a BJJ guy. He likes to defend them, sprawl, get on top, get those takedowns.
Yeah.
So I can see Feely chopping up that lead leg a little bit. Probably going for a takedown. Problem with that, when he goes for a takedown, Swanson's got a nasty guillotine.
Yep.
So it's most likely, I see this being a fight of the night, stand up 3-round brawl, and it's going to be a toss-up decision to me. This is going to be one hell of a fight. You know, they've both got insane records. Cub Swanson's got a good resume. He's got wins over Darren Elkin, Cron Gracie, Jeremy Steffens. He got a win over Poirier and Oliveira. You know, he fought Ortega, lost against him. Holloway. He's been fighting top people for a long time. Same thing with Feely.
Chad Mendes, fucking Cub Swanson he's had a pretty fucking insane resume at featherweight, win or lose. But yeah, like Andre, he's won against Charles Jourdain, Miles Jury, Gabriel Benitez, and Bill Algeo. Never remember how to say his name right.
Algeo, I think.
Yeah,
something like that.
And he's lost against
Names
Dan Ige, Nathaniel Wood, Brito, Bryce Mitchell, Yair, Calvin Kattar, Michael Johnson, Max Holloway. I mean, Andre has a pretty crazy record, and he's definitely got the advantage of being 6 years younger. I think he's got... But, I don't know. I just think what Cub still has to bring to the table, even at 40, I feel like he could... I think he could put down Andre.
I think
at the very least, I think he could get a decision war. You know, I think that's a lot more likely.
At the very minimum, a decision victory. I could definitely see him pulling some sort of submission over him.
Yeah.
Because Andre has really interesting takedowns. Like I said, he'll come in and he'll throw a 1-2, or he'll sometimes just do a full on blast double and just ram you into the cage. Sometimes he'll have other people come in and he'll just step to the side, trip them, or do a nice over-the-shoulder throw. He's got some pretty slick on-the-feet takedowns because he likes to go chase up and do some ground and pound. You know, he doesn't have very many submission victories, and he doesn't have very many submission attempts on his record. He's got 3 wins by submission out of his 23, so not a lot. He's got the other 20 are split between KO and decision. A lot of those losses are decision losses to some pretty good contenders. You got Nathaniel Wood, Bryce Mitchell, Sadiq Youssef, all decision losses. Michael Johnson back in 2018, decision loss. Calvin Kattar, 2017, decision loss. If you're looking at his non-decision losses, 2016 head kick from Yair, and TKO by Brito, and Brito is an animal. Brito is one of my favorite up-and-comers right now. He is nasty.
I think
he got knocked out by Ige recently. I think Ige is another pretty solid top contender
they
right
have
now.
they have very similar careers for sure.
They both have similar careers of fighting the top contenders and having spotty performances against them.
Never really climbing beyond. Yeah, fucking, I don't know, man. It definitely could go either way.
I don't see Andre having the power to put out Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson's got a pretty good chin. A lot of his losses are TKO. So he's either going to have to use that back leg round to either get another leg kick TKO on Swanson's record, another body kick TKO on Swanson's record, or use those leg kicks to make Swanson drop his hands. Because he also fights with his hands low sometimes.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to use those to make him drop his hands, either crack him with a head kick, or is to use those to get a takedown and ground and pound him. But again, the problem with that is that Swanson's got a good number of submission victories and a nasty guillotine. So I think, you know,
he's got a good number of submission losses too. So it could very easily go. You know, Andre could pick up something too.
I think it's going to be a 3-round, 15-minute war.
That's what's most likely.
With probably a decision victory to Swanson.
Yeah, I don't know. It really could go either way, but it just, again, my gut and my heart, I go with Cub. I don't think he'll necessarily get a finish, but I see it. I see a possibility.
That is a damn good fight. I'm really excited for that one.
Yeah, what you said about fight of the night, that's pretty accurate. I mean,
two veteran legends of the 145 division finally fighting each other. They've both been in the UFC for years. I mean, long before I watched UFC. I mean, his
2011.
If you're looking at Swanson, his first fight was against Dustin Poirier 2013, and he beat him. You know, if you're looking at Feely, his first fight was against Max Holloway in 2014. So both of them immediately fought like some big ass names. So I like them both. I don't have a solid pick for this one. I think it's a toss-up decision depending on how good how much of a war it is, how good it goes. It might come down to damage. You know, with the way the judges have been lately, it might just come down to whoever's bleeding the most.
All right. We've spent a lot of time on these lower guys, these bigger fights. I've got a lot to say about too. Let's try to kind of blast through Joe Pyfer and Marc-Andre Barriault.
Luckily, I don't know very much about this one past Joe Pyfer.
Yeah, I know Joe Pyfer was getting a little bit of hype at some point, and I think it was warranted. He still has a good bit to prove. I think he's 12-3. Yeah, 12-3. But I don't know. He's skilled. He lost his last fight against Hermanson, but I think he has the power to win. I need to watch more of Marc-Andre's fights, but he does have more TKO finishes than Pyfer, with 10, but he also has 7 losses, instead of Joe Pyfer's 3. 5 of those losses have came by decision, and so have 10 of his wins. So he's a
decision fighter.
Yeah, he's not a stranger of going 15 minutes in the cage.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, Piper's been a decision twice. One time successfully, one time unsuccessfully.
So it's probably just going to go to decision and then be a toss-up.
Yeah, that's the most likely thing. Unless I could see Pfeiffer possibly pulling out a KO, and I mean again, see Marc Andre. I think he had 10. Is it 10? Yeah, 10 TKO finishes, but he's been to decision just as many times, you know. So
Joe Pfeiffer had that whole thing where he like beat the Power Cube record for a little bit. Or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Because it was what was it? It was Ngannou, and then Pfeiffer, and then Pereira.
I think Pereira now.
And now it's Eddie Hall. I think he like
yeah,
strongmanned it.
yeah,
like,
but I think UFC. You know?
UFC wise, yeah.
You got to think though, how much
Eddie Hall's got like 300 pounds of torque behind that shit.
It's crazy that because it's not that much. It wasn't that much more. It was like a close number. It's like Pereira's that much smaller.
He might be half. He might weigh half as much. I don't know how much Eddie Hall weighs, but
he's definitely over 300, under 400. Pereira's got to be walking around at like 220 or something like that. He's
not quite double, but probably like at least.
He's got about
70%.
About 100 pounds at least. You know, big man. All that weight is muscle. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of chub in his tummy, but that's mostly just fucking power. So yeah, with Joe Pfeiffer, I could see my gut says a finish from Pfeiffer or a toss up.
So who's Pfeiffer fought?
He's fought I think
lost against Hermanson, win against Gerald Meerschaert.
Yeah.
Meerschaert's kind of eh.
He's yeah. Finishing Meerschaert on the feet, I don't think is a huge accomplishment.
No, Hamzat did that in the first round as well.
It is also Hamzat, but. Yeah, Hamzat made me think Meerschaert sucked, but then I watched him a little bit more. And
no, he just kind of always sucked.
Yeah. Alright. Ian Gary versus Michael Venom Page.
This one's pretty easy for me, to be honest. Ian keeps his chin really high.
Mm-hmm.
They're both... This one, honestly, this might be kind of a controversial opinion. This one might be like a bathroom break type fight. I think it might be pretty boring. They're both very patient counter fighters. I think it's going to be a lot of standing at range, throwing single strikes, trying to get them to feel each other out. Neither of them are going to get each other to the ground. They've both got pretty solid takedown defense. The only time Gary got taken down really is when he got clipped hard against what's his name? The Chinese guy.
Yeah, I didn't look up his thing. Yeah, I mean he's undefeated.
Song Kanan, I think.
But he has some crazy obvious holes in his striking, and he gets caught every single time he fights.
I think what's gonna happen is Gary is gonna feel him out for a while.
Kanan Song.
Yep, Song Kanan. Yep. He got clipped hard by Kanan, and Kanan's definitely not top striker. He's definitely got power. Gary does. He's got a lot of power, but if you look at his last fights, decision against Neil Magny, and then a split decision against Jeff Neal. Because that fight was, first round was probably, Gary had some good shots, but then you get to the second round, and it's pretty much a toss-up. Jeff Neal was hanging out with him just fine. So there was a reason it was a split decision. Gary's undefeated. He's all right.
So weird that people were calling him the next Conor McGregor for
He's
a while,
just
too.
not.
No way, man.
He has the same reach as Conor McGregor, and he's like 4 or 5 inches taller or something.
Yeah, dude.
He's got like T-Rex arms, man. That's the thing that gets me with this fight. I think it's going to be boring for the first round, maybe even the first, 4 minutes. They might not entertain it that long. Someone's going to rush in. I think it's going to be Gary because, he's got that 0. He's not going to want to go to any more decisions because he just went to his 2 decisions. One of them was a split. He's going to want to keep that 0. He's going to want to go for a finish.
I don't know if he's just trying to sell the fight or what, but he's been running his mouth pretty heavy against Page.
He runs his mouth against everybody.
He called Page out. I think he's fairly confident he's gonna beat him, and I don't think he likes him all that much. But I think Paige is gonna beat him up. I think he's just gonna dance around him and laugh at him and hit him.
He keeps his chin high, and he's got pretty weak striking defense. When he comes in, he struggles to keep his hands up. He drops his hands a little bit.
I think Paige at this point, I think he beats Jeff Neal and Neil Magny.
For sure.
You know, so
he just beat the shit
out of Kevin
Holland.
Yeah. I could see it being a third round TKO for Paige. I could see it just accumulating.
I could see that. The only advantage...
He has explosive fucking strikes when he wants it.
Very, yeah. The only advantage I could see Gary having is the fact he's got a judo background, or like some judo.
Yeah.
So he could use that, but again, I don't see any way he's going to get in on Paige with Paige has got
he's got
insane reach advantage. He's got a crazy reach advantage. So I think what's going to happen, I think this exactly what's going to happen. Gary is going to want to keep his 0. He's not going to want it to go to the judges because he just went to 2 decisions, and one was a split that literally could have gone either way. Very close fight. So he's going to want to keep that 0 and make it a staple finish. What he's going to try and do, he's going to rush in on MVP. MVP is very, very good at handling people that rush in. He's one of the best counter strikers in MMA, just period. Gary's going to try and rush in. MVP's going to counter it hard. It's either going to knock him out or it's going to start to accumulate and get a probably late TKO, if not an early stoppage. I mean, he broke Cyborg's skull.
Skull, dude.
Shattered his skull with a knee. And I mean...
He's done. He's done fighting after that.
Yeah, he had to retire. I think MVP wins any way he wants, on the feet or by a decision.
Yeah, the leg kick is always going to be there because of his wide bladed stance.
Gary does have pretty good leg kicks.
And
he beat up Kanan's leg for a while.
And that is how he got his first loss too, is by Douglas Lima.
Douglas Lima.
Yeah, that leg kick dropped him and then fucking hit him with that hook as he was coming up. Yeah. Yeah, but I still, I agree. I definitely think MVP has the edge.
They both got a weird, kick heavy. I like MVP's karate style.
Yep.
Gary was talking about fighting Stephen Thompson, and even then, I didn't think that was going to happen. And I don't think he was going to beat Thompson, and you're looking at, if you're looking at MVP and Thompson, they do fight pretty similarly with that weird sideways karate stance.
That'd be a fun fight to see too.
Thompson and MVP would be sick.
They've got similar age too, so.
Yeah, MVP is starting to get up there, so we'll see.
Goddamn leather chair.
But I don't know. That's a good one. It's a very good one.
Yeah,
MVP takes it for sure. It might be. I think it's going to be boring at first.
I could see where you're getting that from, but I don't know. I think
they're both slow starters.
Yeah. It's a little hard for me to remember how the Kevin Holland fight started. I just remember the whole time being like, damn, he is really just beating the shit out of Kevin Holland.
It started kind of slow.
And laughing at him. And I like Kevin. And I was just like, wow. So, is it Myra Bueno Silva?
Yeah, Myra Bueno Silva.
And then
Shitara.
Macy Chiasson.
Chiasen, I think.
Something
it's
like
that. It's Louisianian, so it's something French.
Yeah. I really know nothing about Macy. I know a bit about Bueno Silva.
She's off the Contender Series or something. It might I don't think it's Contender Series. Either Contender Series or Ultimate Fighter. I can't remember. One of those two. But she's got a huge height and reach advantage for this, which is going to be really good for Silva, or for against Silva, because she likes to stick her jabs.
Macy?
She's got a really strong jab, being a 5'11" against a 4'7".
5'7".
5'7". Yeah, 4'7" would be crazy.
Damn, bro.
4'7"
and 135 pounds.
That'd be crazy. No, 5'11" against 5'7", and she's got, I think, a 6 or 7 inch reach advantage too. So she's going to be using that jab a lot. Problem with that, Holly Holm also had a really good reach advantage against Myra Bueno Silva, and she managed to get in and lock up that choke, and that got overturned for some substances, I believe. So she might have had, I think it was a tainted substance. I don't think it was intentional though. So I don't think she was like actually doping. It was like a tainted substance type thing, and like they proved it or some shit. I don't know, but Silva's a wicked submission artist. She's got 7 of them, and Macy's got 3. So I think what's gonna happen is Chiason's gonna use that big reach advantage and stick her jab. And fun fact, I found out 10 of her 13 fights are all in the UFC. She spent almost her entire professional career in the UFC.
Wow.
So she does have that going for her. So she's been...
Did not know that even while I was looking at that.
Yep, she's been in the UFC for a while.
She's only had 4 fights outside of the promotion.
Yep, because it was Contender Series and then the other ones. I mean, she fought the current champion, Pennington. She beat Norma Dumont, who's pretty good. She's got really good takedowns, good combos, and she throws them in pretty high volume. So I think she's going to use that jab, stick it, throw a few combos, beat her up at her range. She's probably not going to use those takedowns. I think that's a bad move against Silva. She's going to lock something up pretty easily on the ground. 7 submissions. She can lock shit up on the feet. She can lock it up on the ground. She's got arm bars. She's got chokes. She's got everything. She's got really, really good aggressive combos, just like Chiazon. She's not as patient with her. She doesn't use the jab. She uses a lot of hooks and uppercuts and elbows. A very aggressive style. Inside fighting a lot.
Yeah.
She went to a decision with Pennington. Chiazon fought Aldana, I believe. That's what I meant. She didn't fight.
Irene Aldana.
Yep, she didn't fight the current champion. She fought Aldana, who fought for the belt.
Yeah.
Is what it was. And
that up kick to the body. That was
I remember
insane.
that. Yep,
I
remember
saw that against Aldana. Yeah.
That was really good.
Okay. I remember. I think I've seen Macy fight Irene and then Norma Dumont.
I guess she did fight Pennington. I missed that.
I don't know. Yeah, she does sound a bit more familiar. I think, again,
they both fought Pennington, but
I don't.
Silva went to a decision, and Chiazon got choked out.
Yeah.
So at the MMA math doesn't work. Silva was able to hang out with Pennington on the feet, and on the ground, and go to a decision.
Yeah.
Chiazon got taken down and got choked out with a guillotine.
I definitely saw those fights because I watched all those cards.
Yep. So, I think this is a pretty easy win for Silva. The only way Chiason's going to win is if she uses that jab and good combos and manages to keep Bueno Silva away. But again, she got that victory against Holm, so she's proven that she can get inside. It doesn't matter how much longer, how good your boxing is. She can get inside, lock something up. The only thing is that she lacks open mat takedowns, so if she wants to take it to the ground and lock up one of those submissions, she's going to have to push her against the cage or rely on her getting a takedown.
Yeah.
And Macy's not going to want to throw one of those takedowns. She's going to be very comfortable on her feet during this fight. It's either going to be... It's kind of a toss-up. I see Silva getting a submission like 40%, and then Chiason getting the decision like 60%, I'd say, just by beating her up on range for a while.
I went off of pretty much purely stats with like a notable win over Jillian Robinson in 2018.
Again, that was back in 2018 before Robertson was like really picking up steam.
Yeah.
She was just starting her UFC journey, and she's definitely started to pick it up lately.
Yeah, but Bueno Silva, her higher number of submissions over Macy, and I don't know. I think she, off of what you said too, I think she takes it by submission, or it goes to either one of them by decision. Most likely Bueno Silva, but I could see it going either way, especially with these judges are fucking crazy. I can't remember what fight it was the other week or two, but it was like someone had a split decision for somebody that made absolutely no sense.
There's just been some scorecards that haven't made sense.
In general, man, like
I remember last week on the Tyra card, the first fight, the Road to UFC fight, they did the 10-second at the bell, what should have been the bell. So they fought for like 10 extra seconds.
Huh.
Yeah, they did like the 10-second clap twice, or like forgot to do it. So it was really weird.
That's
like the
weird.
time and so like the judges or the commentators like yelling at the ref, but it wasn't the ref's fault. There's been some wacky shit going on.
Yeah. Ugh. Anthony Smith and Roman Dolidze, however you say it.
Dolidze, I think.
Yeah, cool name, but
This is an interesting fight. One of the short notice ones that was made when 303 fell apart because of Connor. And Jamal Hill. So this fight went from Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree to Jamal Hill and Carlos Ulberg to Ulberg and Anthony Smith to Smith and Dolidze.
yeah,
So Dolidze is coming in very short notice,
yeah,
and he's a career middleweight on top of that.
yeah.
So if you look at that, he doesn't have any weight to cut, but I don't believe he's ever fought at light heavyweight before, and Anthony Smith has almost 60 fights professionally at light heavyweight.
Yeah.
He's 38-19.
Yeah, and Roman's a pretty messy brawler from what I've seen.
He's got good power. He's got a very good basic 1-2 kick.
But he's got there's like no defense from what I saw. A lot of it is just kind of falling forward on his punches, and he like stands in front of you just to get hit in the face.
He overextends on his right hand a lot. He'll do that thing where he throws his head out with his right hand, and it does not work against Anthony Smith because he's been around for a while. He will catch you. He's a very long time vet. He does struggle against top contention sometimes if you're looking at his record. I mean, lost against John Jones, Raychik, Glover Teixeira, Johnny Walker, Magomed Ankalaev, Khalil Roundtree, Thiago Santos. Like, most of those people that are in the top 10, he's lost to. But a lot of these kind of iffy, maybe up-and-comers, maybe good, maybe not fighters, he takes pretty easily. He's very complete on the feet and with his takedowns. He's from Omaha. He's a hometown hero.
Yeah, Nebraskan.
Omaha, Nebraska.
Gotta go for him.
The only thing I could see is he's very susceptible to leg kicks, and Dolidze does have that good 1-2 with a kick, and he does have really strong kicks. He can beat him up on the legs.
I could definitely see Roman's power allowing him to like blitz through and find a way to a finish. But
Smith is tough as nails, man. It's gonna be really hard to finish him.
With Smith's grappling and his stand up, I think he's most likely gonna.
So Smith does this weird thing too when he does this weird thing with his elbows when people will come in. He'll catch people with short ass elbows when they're coming in. So Dolidze, with the sloppy striking he has, I think he's gonna come in and he's gonna throw that right, overextend on it. It's going to be pretty easy for Smith to catch that right elbow or left elbow or wherever side they try and come from and just catch that real quick. It should be pretty easy for him to get a stoppage there. If not, just use that to glide to a decision. Like I said, he's very complete. The only issue I see is that he's content on his back, and Dolidze's got pretty solid grappling, but he's more of a submission grappler. He goes for heel hooks. He's got two very, very early heel hook victories. Those are his only two of his three submission victories, but I believe he has attempted a heel hook in most of his fights at the very least. So if this does go to the ground, I think this fight's honestly going to go all over. It's going to go on the feet, and he's going to beat him up a little bit. Dolidze is going to come in with some sloppy striking, get caught on the feet.
They're both pretty complete.
They're both decently complete. Anthony's just more complete where it counts.
Yeah.
He's been around for so long,
man.
He's got 20 knockouts. So I mean, if you're looking at that, it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna be pretty easy for him to just catch one of those short elbows that he likes to do on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely give I'd give the edge to Lionheart. I mean, anything can happen. I don't have a real clear idea, but because again, he has had a pretty spotty performance recently, but
that loss to Roundtree, I mean, he he put some good shots on Roundtree, and I think Roundtree's on his way to a title fight. Honestly, he's
Roundtree's pretty
really
fucking
good. Went to a decision against Johnny Walker, and Johnny Walker's kind of take her to leave it at this point. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think pretty easily it goes to Lionheart. Either, honestly, kind of however he wants. Delete says.
Really, yeah, anywhere he could.
Delete says coming unprepared. He's not cutting weight technically with him, being a career middleweight, but I think that's going to be a real problem. I think Anthony, he's a big light heavyweight man.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
He's big, and I think that power is not going to be able to. I don't think Delete is going to be able to handle that very well. Those leg kicks are going to count, I think, but I mean, Smith has got huge legs, dude. He's got big old legs, so we'll see how those even affect him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all pretty solid.
The only thing is he's not very good on his back feet. Anthony is not. Smith isn't. But I don't think Delayed Say is going to be able to have good enough striking to put him on the back foot. Smith wins anyway he wants. Whatever round. Anyway.
So Brian Ortega, Diego Lopez, we're at the fucking co-main event.
T-City.
Yeah. His stand-up is fucking spotty at best.
So is Lopez. They're honestly not great with their stand-up. Every single fight Lopez has had, he's gotten chin. He's not even the first round finishes he's had. He got chinned pretty badly by Yusuf. He got chinned pretty badly the other fights before then because he's wild with his striking. They both have pretty poor striking defense, get hit often. Diego's got a little more head movement, but they do have a tendency to just stand and plant. Lopez will move his head, but they don't move. He's not moving his feet. And Ortega doesn't do anything. He's just relying completely on blocking.
He doesn't block effectively. He's often caught standing straight in front of his opponent, absorbing strikes. He'll circle around and move, or he'll stand in place, and after he's been hit with a combo, like move his head a little bit. But after that, he never puts it all together. Very often, like when he does, it works, but it's so infrequent. He landed some good shots on Yair in his last fight. I think that was his last fight.
Yeah, but he also got clipped pretty badly by
Yair. He got fucking clobbered by him. Dropped multiple times.
Yeah.
He still went in there and got the submission win. But I don't know. I haven't seen as much as Diego Lopez.
It's
I know
a huge step up for him. I
watched
watched every
fights.
single fight of his UFC career because it's 2 decisions and 3 finishes that are in the first round. I mean, it took me half an hour. It wasn't very long.
To me, I don't know. Diego has more finishes by TKO and by submission.
And he's got a bigger record. I mean, 24-6 for Lopez versus 16-3 for Ortega.
Yeah, I was looking at fucking...
Ortega spent almost his entire career in the UFC, so he's been fighting those top line people.
Dude, the whole time though.
I mean,
Thiago
the entire
Tavares,
time.
Diego Brandao, Clay Guida. I don't know Renato Carcinero, but
I'm not familiar with him either.
Cub Swanson, Frankie Edgar. Those are all wins, mind you. Then he lost we all know the Max Holloway loss. Beats the Korean Zombie in a pretty stellar 5-round fucking war. You have his loss to Volkanovski.
He almost beat Volkanovski multiple times. Almost
close.
Locked up a couple really, really tight... he did lock up a couple really tight submissions. Almost had him out with that guillotine, but he also locked up a really tight triangle right after that a lot of people don't give him credit for it because he spent a lot of effort on that guillotine. He popped out and locked up one of his triangles, T-City, right away, and almost had him out with that, too.
I mean, I didn't see the first Yair fight, but I watched the whole second one, and he got fucking battered, but he got back up, he recovered, and
he's very comeback heavy.
Yeah.
He's really good at coming back in the last round. He's got extreme toughness. He's a 10-year UFC vet. He's very patient. He's got better hands than you'd think for a BJJ black belt.
Yeah.
He stood with Volkanovski the entire fight, mostly. He was getting beat up towards the end, but I mean, Volkanovski did not come out of that fight unscathed. He's got cuts all over. He's got cuts under both eyes, one on his forehead, one on the top of his bald ass head. Like, he's got cuts everywhere. Ortega's got good elbows. He's got good ground and pound. I think this fight's gonna be another fight of the night type. It's gonna be a war. They're gonna entertain each other on the feet. It's gonna be a little bit slow at first. I honestly think this should probably be a 5-round fight. If it was my opinion, it might be, but to my knowledge, it's not. I think it should be, because this would be this is gonna be another fight of the night. They're gonna feel each other out for a little bit. Ortega and probably gonna be a little bit more hesitant than Lopez. Lopez is probably gonna throw the strikes first. He's got more fights. He's younger. He's only been in the UFC 1 year though, so he's. Ortega said that he doesn't have a title in his future, and Lopez is out to get a title. So he literally wants it more than T-City does right now. T-City's coming back from a pretty nasty injury pretty recently with only one fight since then. Pretty quick turnaround too.
Yeah.
Like I said, he relies on blocking, and I think with Lopez's wild striking, he's going to be able to crack through those blocks pretty easily, piece up the body, do some nice kicks. He's got some pretty nice kicks, too. He's got great boxing. I believe he trains with Alexa Grasso, because he trains her BJJ, and she trains his boxing. So they kind of train together. So, I mean, he trains with the champion, to my knowledge, from what I heard, so...
Yeah,
he's good.
Diego hasn't fought as many people, as any high, like legends per se as Brian. But,
like I was saying though, he fought a pretty tough decision against Joannis and Brito. I love Brito. He's an animal. He's a dog. He's got insane ground and pound. I think he's got a title in his future.
Movsar
Evolov,
his name.
I believe he's top 5, and that was a really, really good back and forth.
Dude's 18-0, 17-0, so like that and those 3 wins against Gavin Tucker, Pat Sabatini, Sadiq Youssef, those guys are all not like fucking world beaters, but they're good fighters.
I don't think anyone's gonna put each other out clean. No one's gonna go out clean with this fight. They both have insane chins.
Yeah.
They've both gotten clipped hard in every single UFC fight that they've had almost, and they haven't gone out. They've gotten dropped.
Catch up. It's gonna catch up eventually.
I think Ortega is going to have to lock up a submission if he's going to want to win. The problem with that is he's a defensive submission artist, and Lopez is an offensive submission artist.
Lopez is great.
He
has 4 more submissions.
He averages like 4 submissions or something crazy, like insane. He's always trying to lock shit up. So he's going to put T-City on his feet. The problem with him always trying to lock up stuff is that Ortega's going to see openings. They're both BJJ black belts. It's going to be fun scrambles, people trying to lock stuff up, Lopez going for the offense, T-City defending it, trying to go for the defensive submissions. I think the best success Lopez is going to have is staying on the feet and using his wild striking to catch Brian Ortega and probably get a 3rd round TKO would be my biggest. That'd be my pick.
That was my thing too. Final round TKO or a decision win for Diego Lopez. I could see Brian snatching up some sort of submission, but again, Diego is very good on the ground too. He's nothing to slouch at.
His grandpa is like a coral belt or some shit, or his uncle I think is a coral belt, which is like you have to be in BJJ for like
your whole entire life,
40 years or some shit like that. So it's like he's been training it since he was 5. Like he's been doing it his entire life. He is probably as good as Oliveira in the BJJ game. He's always constantly putting people on their toes, locking stuff up. They never know what to expect. Lopez TKO. I don't think he's going to want to hang out with Ortega. I think that's going to be a little bit dangerous for him just with how wild he is, because he's wild on the ground too. He's got scrambles and all that stuff. He's unpredictable everywhere. So I think Ortega, with his high fight IQ, might be able to pick out that unpredictability and lock something up defensively. So yeah, Just like I
Yep.
said, Lopez needs to probably keep it on the feet, go for a third round TKO. That seems like money.
So Pereira Prohaska 2. So
This is a good one.
yeah, I don't have too much to say. You know, Alex already finished him once. In that sequence, Yuri managed to clip him pretty hard before he, inevitably got dropped. You could argue if it was somewhat of an early stoppage, but I don't think Prohaska was going to, pop up and go another 4 rounds or anything like that. But,
He is pretty good at coming back.
He
I
is,
mean, if you
he
look at
is.
his record, that's how he fights. He reboots like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, he got beat up by Glover by the ground and pound. Got beat up on the feet by Ratchik until he got his number. I think he might have just been toying with Ratchik. I mean, Ozdemir was a pretty clean victory for Yuri. But you look at all of his other fights, he comes back after almost losing every single time. He says himself he was out cold during the Reyes fight when he got up kicked. He said he was out cold and sprawled on his body to try and wake himself back up and figure out where he was. He was out cold. That's where Yuri thrives. And Herb Dean is the referee for this fight.
Yeah.
So Herb Dean's probably going to let this go a little bit longer than the last one went.
The power behind Alex, too.
It's the problem with reffing a Pereira fight is that one punch is all it takes for being okay to fucking brain damage. It's crazy. The only thing they're both coming off a pretty quick training camp for this.
Yeah.
Short notice for them both. But the advantage to that is they both normally have little to no weight cut. Pereira was a career middleweight, so he used to cut weight. He's towards the end of his career now. He said himself he's not sure how long he's going to be in it. He's late in his career. I think he's 38, I want to say. So 36. Yuri says he cuts 10 to 15 pounds. It's a relatively easy weight cut. Neither of them cut very much weight, if at all. Probably 10 to 15 each. So they don't have any weight cut. Pereira is coming off of a toe injury, which is funny because Conor pulled out for breaking his toe. He was occupied doing tours and stuff. He wasn't training. It's short notice for him, but that hasn't really been a problem. Most of his fights have been short notice and short turnaround. Yuri's got an okay chin, and he reboots like a robot. Like I said, he's almost gotten finished in every single fight and came back and won all but one of them in the UFC.
Yep.
Except for the Ozdemir fight, that was pretty clear for him. He's really vulnerable because he keeps his hands down and his chin high. He's super unorthodox everywhere. His feet are weird, his hands are weird, his stance are weird. He just does taekwondo, literally jumping up and switching feet, weird stuff. He's the epitome of a true martial artist. He locked himself in a room for 3 days with no food and no light after Dana called him or some weird shit. He's a weird dude, but he's a relatively complete fighter. I think that's going to be a benefit.
Exactly, yeah.
The problem is he's got such a short training camp that he is primarily a striker that can grapple. His best success would have been to train the grappling because that's where Pereira's biggest hole is. I mean, you look at the Jan fight, that really could have gone either way because the first round, I mean, they beat each other. The first round was pretty easily Jan's. Easily. Pinned him down, held him down almost the entire round. And then the other 2 rounds, it was a back and forth. They were clipping each other. Jan landed a few takedowns. That was a close fight, Pereira and Jan. So that really, really showed that Pereira has a weakness, and that's his grappling. And Yuri can grapple. He submit Glover after Glover was taking him down, beating him up the entire fight. Just outpaced him.
Definitely.
The problem is, again, it's going to be really, really hard to outpace Pereira because he's got a really strong front kick, really strong leg kicks, and a really strong left hook. He's got really good parrying with his hands, which I like about him. I think he learned that from Izzy, to be honest. He reaches his hands and he'll reach out and parry with his hands, and he's learned a lot on the feet from just being a kickboxer. He's become much more of an MMA striker as opposed to a kickboxer adapting to MMA. The problem with that, again, he lacks grappling. he's going to have to use his leg kicks and his front kicks and his hooks to put Yuri on his back leg, because Pereira also struggles on his back foot.
Yeah.
That's when Jan landed most of his takedowns on him, was when he was pressuring him just a little bit. Not even a lot. He wasn't landing anything. He was just throwing ones, just light jabs and twos in his face,
That's when Yuri
making
caught
him back up.
When he backed up against the cage.
And then took him down.
He
Yep.
dropped.
He's not very
dropped
good
him.
on his back foot. So if Pereira marches forward, sticks to his usual game plan, the front kick, the leg kick, parries with his hands, hits him with that nice left hook, he's a world-class striker.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know, to be honest. I tend to lean towards Pereira, but the problem with Prohaska is he knows that taking him down is the best thing to do, but he's not going to do that. He's going to entertain him on the feet.
I think if Yuri's a bit more patient, he could find his mark before Alex does and get the finish. But I don't know, dude, Pereira still gives off this like unbeatable energy, even though he's been finished more than once. It just
Prohaska had decent success in the first round.
Yeah,
he
did. No,
fight.
he did.
So I mean,
he got close to finishing him before he just got dropped. But
he's got like two identical like fights to Jan too. They both finished Reyes within like seconds of each other, and both knocked out Rechik in the first round. So I mean,
he's always got Yuri always has those submissions tucked away in that sheath. So
Yo.
like, if it does hit the mat, he is ready. But again, like you said, I don't think he's really all that willing to take it there, and I don't think Alex is going to do that either.
nope.
I'm a fan of them both. I'd like to see them both do well.
It's definitely going to a finish.
I still pretty realistically see a TKO finish from Alex, like round one, late in round one, sometime in round two, or I could see Yuri getting a TKO in the first couple of rounds. But
I think Yuri's unpredictableness, and his unorthodox striking and his spinning attacks are going to be pretty good.
I could see him getting a pretty desperate sub, like round 3 or 5. Maybe Pereira drops him and he manages to survive. Pereira sprawls or whatever, and then he manages to log something up. But I still give just the edge to Pereira, because it doesn't matter how much of a warrior you are when he taps you and your entire body just goes limp.
Mm-hmm. I mean, their records: Pereira's 10-2 late in his career. Prohaska's 34-1, and he's like 30. He's early 30s.
1992, whatever that math is. 36, something like that.
I think,
know.
Something like that. He's young. He's younger.
Horrible at math.
He's younger, but he's a little bit less active. I mean, his vulnerability is really a problem. I think, though. I think he's gonna be able to.
When he has his hands that, if he gets touched, it's like, it's hard. As good as he is recovering from getting dropped, it's hard to recover from
got
Pereira,
different power.
dude.
He's got different power. It's gonna be. I think Pereira's most likely gonna. It's gonna be a knockout on either side. It's not gonna go to a finish. Prohaska's only got one non-finish victory.
I definitely don't see a decision, but
No, not a decision.
yeah, Yuri's
One non-finish victory for Prohaska, so he's a finish fighter.
Yeah, Yuri's not taking it to the ground. If it ends up on the ground, though, I think that's where his best chances are going to end up. If he entertains it once it hits the ground.
Yep.
If it does.
The way I see this fight going in my head, Yuri's going to come with his hands down. He's going to be real unorthodox, be weird and wacky. Pereira's going to tap him a little bit. He's probably going to put his hands up high, because he can put his hands up high. He's done it before. He has a long guard. He'll do that. I think he'll keep him at a pretty okay distance for a little bit. He's going to get clipped a few times. Yeah, I think Pereira's got it. I mean, Prohaska's only real success is going to be with takedowns and taking him, like, smothering him on the ground, and he's just not, that's not what he does. He's still a striker. So I think I think Pereira with a third or fourth round KO or TKO is pretty likely because even if Yuri gets knocked down and tries to look for that submission off his back or on the ground, or if he turns over Pereira somehow, I don't think he's going to have the energy or the brain power or the awakenedness to, like, lock in something after getting hit by Pereira. I think Pereira wins this fight all day.
Yeah. Well,
Prohaska's going to have some success, I think, but he's going to have about as much
he'll
success.
definitely have
It's going to be about the
success.
same as the first fight. He's going to have some moderate success. He's going to entertain on the feet instead of being smart and taking it to the ground. He's going to get chinned and knocked out. Probably by a TKO.
Yeah, well, that's 303. We had a couple memorable UFC moments we were thinking of sharing. We've already gone an hour and a half. I think it might even be best if we just have a whole episode that's just us sharing some of our favorite moments and showing clips.
That's a good, yeah.
Yeah, because I like the whole analysis of the whole card, but I don't think this is something we're going to do for every card, every time. We'll definitely be talking about things like the events that are coming up, big fights that we're super interested in.
Probably just like the main pay-per-views.
Yeah, or at the very,
very least,
ones we're really interested in.
Yeah.
You know? But probably talk about odds and like bet picks. We mess around with betting and better DraftKings, all that crap a little bit. If you've ever seen MMA On Point and Fight Front, I know I'd like to post some more retrospective videos like that and do some of their like trivia games, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's really all I have to say. I appreciate if you watched all the way through. You know, hopefully we can make this somewhat frequent thing. Do you have anything you wanted to add?
Not really. I mean, we just like talking about the sport, like watching it. We're not any in-depth sports analyst. I mean, I got a fair amount of information wrong, I'm sure. I'm not going to have any comments about it because we don't have anyone to fucking watch it. But
Yeah, I mean,
which is the good part.
If
but
you listen, we're definitely open to conversation, but this is, we're two slightly above casual fans, but by no means are we experts in the sport.
ESPN level expert.
Yeah.
No, we just like watching the fights. We're not breaking down like every second of a fight. We're watching fights and taking some pretty broad notes and just commenting on things and using them for predictions on who we think's gonna win the fight and whatnot.
Yeah, well, that was the garage. Thanks for watching.